Boom. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me out.
In San Antonio.
Well, I came to help speak at an event. I was invited by a lender that I do a lot of business with, and I'm not a selfish person, so I'm all about returning the favor. And he asked me to come help speak at an event to draw some people out so he could take over this new market of San Antonio. And while I was at the airport this morning, he sent me a text and he was like, "Hey, we got to cancel the guy that was going to headlines in the hospital, and we just got to cancel the whole thing." So at that point, I was like, "Well, I guess I'm here at the airport. I'm gonna
Might as well keep
be
going.
forced into a vacation, which I never do."
Yeah, well, I was wondering about that. I'm like, you don't seem like you take vacations because I've been looking at your Facebook for a while. And for people who don't know, you're how what would you say you are? A real estate investor? How would you word it?
That's what I call it. People
Okay.
tell me I'm more of a developer. Some people still call me a plumber because that's how I started before I ever got in real estate. But I'd call myself an investor. But I know how to always ruin a good thing. So my vacation's already turning into a work trip. I've hit up a lot of people I know that are pretty heavy hitters in commercial real estate and meeting up with them. Got somebody I'm meeting up with tonight to watch the Mavs game, got some people having lunch with tomorrow and so on. So
That's pretty cool.
I figured out how to turn it into something to do with work.
So I mentioned, the whole vacation thing and being a real estate investor because yeah, I've been following your Facebook for a while and like every single day you have a post about you had to go check on some project, fix some problem, buy a building, rehab a house, whatever. Like you're always doing something. Even on the weekends, you're like, I had to process these payments and sign these leases and do this and do that.
Yeah, I've got a lot of investors that typically are like, "Hey, you're supposed to be moving up and big time and you shouldn't be doing all that and you should always be on the beach." And one, I don't enjoy being on a beach, to be
Yeah, me
honest.
neither.
Anywhere I go, I'm good for about one day, and then I'm like, all right, let's get to work.
Yeah.
So that doesn't work for me. But two, anybody I've seen that's always tried to move themselves out of their business, I've never seen it work. Because you have to be the manager. Like you can't completely take yourself out 100% and expect it to be very profitable.
Mhm.
Kind of like the Chick-fil-A model. If you're going to be owner of Chick-fil-A, they want you to work there. So
Right.
I always want to somehow be a part of my business. Just as I get more experience and I get older and more out of shape, I've learned how to take myself out of the hard part. So I'm not carrying a hammer anymore, but I'm definitely very much involved.
Is that a metaphor? Carrying a hammer, or you mean that literally?
Literally, like I mean, 5 years ago, I did all my own rehabs by myself,
Okay.
but I had to learn through a lot of people yelling at me that if I wanted to scale, I had to learn how to let other people do other things, and that was hard for me to do. But that's something I had to learn how to do. I had to learn how to hand over the construction, which I was in construction before real estate, so that was hard for me to do. But then I learned that I'm much better off as a GC, and I'm pretty good at that. So that's something.
GC,
Yeah,
general
so general
contractor.
contractor. So I run my job sites. Now I'm at a point where I run them all from my phone every day. So my guys just text me. They let me know when they're on site. They'll do text to pay from Home Depot so I can see what all they're ordering. They got to give me pictures at the end of the day. Literally, while I'm out here, I had guys on different job sites, and somebody moved into an apartment today. So
Hmm.
got to do all that while on vacation.
That's pretty badass. I think you can only grow so much if you're gonna keep your finger on every single thing that's happening in your business. Like you can't like if you really want to grow, you're gonna have to delegate some responsibilities. You cannot possibly manage every little thing, right? It's like there's only so much you can do personally in one day.
Yeah, and I think the biggest problem there is some people either refuse to do that or some people do it too fast. I want to be a master of something before I let it go.
Yeah.
And the reason why is that way I know if it's right, I know if it's done wrong, and I know the best process to do it. And plus, if you're an expert at it, I've done tile before. So if a tile guy is taking 4 days to tile a shower, like I know if there's a problem, I know how much time it should take. I don't have to be there on the job. So
Sure.
it helps.
You boozing? Or
Yeah,
no?
I'll
You don't
take it.
have to be peer pressured, but
I'll take it.
I want to have a drink with
what
you.
am I drinking?
This is bourbon.
Yeah, don't say the name unless they're paying you.
Woodford.
Yeah, let's send them an email and ask them to pay you to mention their name.
Hey, I'm done with that. So how did let me just get that situated and then so how did you get started? Like you just mentioned you've done tile, you've done plumbing, like go back to when you were, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years old, whenever you started working and making your own money. What was like, were you always entrepreneurial? Were you one of those kids that started out
Yes.
selling whatever,
Yes.
mowing lawns or selling driveway numbers or that
Absolutely.
kind of thing?
I did everything. So I worked flea markets since I was probably 12 years old. For the people who are in the Texas area, I worked Traders Village and every other kind of flea market there was. Um, I used to sling computer parts back when they were actually worth money. And I learned from a lot of like street hustlers work ethic. And I learned, that was pretty important thing. I've mowed lawns, I've done everything. I remember even for like holidays like Easter and stuff, people would pay me like to set out Easter eggs for them. And I mean, anyway, I used to sling pencils in elementary school. So
Wow.
they had the little sports teams on them. So it's always been in me. I remember like my brother's friends used to even make rumors that I was a drug dealer and I'm like 8. I'm not selling drugs. Like I'm still picking my nose, but I'd walk around with a briefcase just because it's like always who I wanted to be.
Mm.
But I ended up getting in a lot of trouble, got put on probation. I didn't do anything terrible, but I was not a good kid. Got put on probation. Probation officer was pretty cool. He was like, "Hey, get a job, quit being stupid." So I got a job working for a plumbing company, and
This is at what age?
I just turned 17.
Hmm.
I didn't graduate high school. I got my GED to even do that, and so started doing plumbing, and I was making good money with that, and wasn't even happy being a plumber. Like I wanted to own a company. So even from the very beginning, like that was my target. And the second I started my company, everybody I was working for, which this was right after a 2008 crash. So like I guess all these home flippers were buying houses cheap. And every one of them was like bragging to me about how much money they were making. And I was like, man, y'all are stupid. Like, y'all don't know anything about construction. So if you can make money, I can make more. Now I realize, knowing anything about construction doesn't matter. That's not real estate. Real estate's all about, buying the deal right and having equity. But at the time, my thought process was definitely, since I know more about construction, I'm going to be better at this than you. And I'm glad that I was ignorant enough to think that because it always had real estate in my mind, and I watched it probably like a lot of listeners. I'd be on the internet, watching Zillow and stuff like that, looking at houses, just never really pulled the trigger. And I had been working, running my own business. I'd saved up 250,000, and this banker was like, "What are you doing with all this money?" And I'm like, "What's the problem? Like, I'm saving it because cash is king." And he was like, "No, not at all." And he was like, "Do you know about inflation?" I was like, "No." Yeah. And once he explained that to me and explained that my money's losing value on an average of 3 to 4% a year.
And the last year, year and a half, it's like 20% or something,
Yeah,
something outrageous.
yeah, absolutely. And so he told me that, and really he was only telling me so he could sell me some stocks and bonds
Right.
packages that Chase JP Morgan sells. But he taught me just that one thing, and that opened my eyes, kind of like taking the pill on the Matrix. And um, he was like, "So what are you gonna do?" I'm like, "I'm gonna go buy some real estate." And within 1 month, I bought my first house.
Nice. Do you know who Dan Pena is?
I do. I do know
Yeah,
who that
so
is.
you were mentioning about like how these dummies are making a lot of money, and if they can do it, you can do it. He's got a funny take on that. He says that sometimes the dumber you are, the more you'll succeed in business. Because if you're too smart, you'll probably analyze the shit out of the problem and never end up doing anything. But he
Yeah,
said, but he says a moron will just do it.
I love him because I don't get offended, and
Me neither. Nah,
I
because we got that Middle Eastern in us. We
I
don't.
I probably accidentally offended people a lot, including our banker Gloria today. She was pretty upset with my email, but I'm just direct and honest.
Right.
And
I appreciate that.
I don't sugarcoat stuff anymore because I learned when you do that, it's misdirection, and
Yep.
misdirection wastes time and time's money. So
For sure.
I like to be very clear and precise about what my expectations are. Makes it impossible to date because you walk up to somebody you're trying to date like it's a job interview, and up front you're like, "Hey, I expect this, and can you cook and clean my house?" And
Is that what happened, Tanya? Is that Jawad's wife is here with us? Is that how he interviewed you?
If y'all didn't hear, my first question to her was, "Are you on any prescription medications?" And that's because I learned from the last 3 before that. That doesn't work out.
Wait, last 3 wives or last 3 girlfriends?
Girlfriends.
Okay.
I'm not that lucky.
Yeah.
Or
No,
I'm
but
lucky.
you know that Middle Easternness, like I always say, nobody can offend me because there's nothing anybody can tell me that's worse than what my parents have told me growing up.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of Middle Eastern parents. Like
Yeah,
they're never impressed.
Yeah, absolutely not. See, she's recognized that, but no, even my mother, she's not Arab, she's Irish. She always thought she was Native American, but she's not. My brother just had one of those DNA tests, and she's everything but Native American.
Brilliant. Yeah, send your DNA into the internet.
But neither one of my parents could ever be impressed or be proud of me.
No, it's impossible.
Yeah,
Irish and Middle Eastern, forget it.
Even still this day, I've built up a $10 million net worth from growing up in a life where we definitely had food stamps and had 11 people in a 700 square foot house to now it's $10 million net worth. My mom still sends me books on real estate, tells me that I should learn something. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. That's hilarious. But that I think there's something about that. This is just my biased opinion about those Middle Eastern genes. Like I call it the immigrant mentality or whatever. But that hustle that you were talking about when you were a kid, slinging pencils in elementary school, and then growing up and just taking that further and further into bigger and bigger things. I think there's something really Middle Eastern about that. Just the art of negotiation. I think we invented it.
I learned definitely my work ethic from my father. I have known my dad in no way other than through work. My dad's the nicest guy ever, always means well, never had like an emotional relationship with him. He was like, "Hey, if you want to hang out, I'm going to work." And like, that's the only way that we were hanging out together. And it's something that we did often. And he always had a great work ethic. So that's definitely where I picked that up.
Yeah, I think it's largely genetic. There's of course some environmental factors, but I think a lot of work ethic is just something you're born with, and sometimes the environment is very contributing to that. Like you notice a lot with like the statistics on first generation immigrants that come to America and how hard they work, and then you see that productivity and work ethic goes down by something like 40% by the second generation, and it's almost down to 0 by the third.
I give a lot of credit to it because a lot of people try to make it seem like the things that I do are big, and yeah, I make a lot of money, but I mean, I would be terrified to go to another country by myself as a teenager and just start from scratch. I really I actually stop at least once a year and just like scratch my head and try to figure out how somebody gets the courage to do that. Like,
Sure.
I don't think I could do that. I don't even want to move to another state. So,
well, I
give a lot of credit to that.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to move to another state because then you're going to be paying state income tax. But there's part of it is courage, and then part of it is like if you're living in a war-torn country, then you'll go just about anywhere.
Yeah.
Because whatever might be on the other end of the ocean is better than where you're at right now. I think that has a lot to do. I mean, that was kind of the case with my parents with why they came to the States, because we couldn't stay in the United Arab Emirates forever. And then going back to Lebanon, like what the hell were we going to do there?
Well, I asked my dad, I was like, why did you come here? And he was like, 2 reasons: school, and all they did over there was watch like Wild West movies.
And soccer.
And so he was like, I want to be a Texan. You know, he wanted cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. And
that's cool.
Unfortunately, that's not what Texas is anymore. But I'm glad he came here instead of California.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So okay, you started out in this plumbing company when you were, or you started out working as a plumber when you were like in your teens,
That
16,
was that
17.
was 17, and then I started my own company in 2010. However old that was, I don't know.
What kind of company was? I'm trying to.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that was a
wanna.
plumbing company
Okay,
in 2010.
okay,
I bought my first real estate deal at the end of 2013,
okay.
which I didn't know that I was coming in like an amazing time where I would have bought everything and kept everything. But I didn't know what I didn't know.
Why was 2013 so amazing?
Because after 2008 crash and everything like plummeted to the bottom, and then it was just kind of dead and stagnant for a few years. So 2013 is like right when like it was getting hot again. So it was a great time to buy, but the prices were still at the bottom.
Mhm.
And so it was perfect timing that I was coming in. And I found this amazing deal because, this is before Facebook. So I was trying to like source deals, and, Craigslist was king back then. So I was like, I'm going to find me a house. And I was on Craigslist all day. And I found a house out in Mesquite, which is a suburb of Dallas. And this guy was like $50,000. His parents passed away. You could buy the whole house furnished, $50,000. I looked it up. In my opinion, even though I didn't know what I was doing, but I was right, was worth probably like 125,000 at the time. And it wasn't in bad shape. It was just outdated because they were older people.
Hmm.
And I emailed this guy like 3 times, and I was like, hey, I want to buy this property. There's no phone number. Guy doesn't respond. If you get to know me, you're going to realize that 99% of my success is because I'm the most stubborn person you'll ever meet. You not responding to me in 20 minutes is not enough to stop me. I was like, here's a picture of the house. I see the house number. I was born and raised in that city. I can find this house. Like, I already know just by looking at it and the style of the house, what kind of like block and area it's going to be in.
Wow.
So I drove around for an hour and finally found the house. And I left a note on the door, and I was like, hey, I want to buy this house. Call me at this number. And probably about an hour later, the guy called me and he's like, man, I'm so glad you left this note. It's perfect timing. I just put an ad on Craigslist for 50,000. I thought everybody'd want to buy it, and nobody did. And I was like, oh, yeah, maybe it wasn't a good price. Will you take 40? And he's like, is it cash? I'm like, yeah, sure. And so he's like, okay, bring me a contract. And I'm like, I don't even know like what contract. Where do I
Right.
get it from? And I didn't have a mentor or anything like that, but I went to high school with this guy who was a realtor, and I knew that. And so I called him and I was like, hey, I don't know what you're doing right now, but I'll give you $2,500 to stop whatever you're doing. Bring me a contract and show me how to fill it out. And so he couldn't be a realtor of the deal because he wasn't representing the guy. It wasn't on the market. Uh, but I paid him cash right then and there. Did the deal, closed on it a week later, and bought this house for 30%. And it was rent ready the way that I bought it. And it's funny because all he did is walked into the garage, got on his dad's motorcycle, said, keep the rest, and drove off. And I'm like,
Wow.
you left every picture of your family, like everything, like priorities.
Right. That
But
says a lot.
I bought the property, and I rented it out Section 8, which I don't even remember how I came up with doing Section 8, but I rented out Section 8, and I was making $12.50 a month rent for a property that I bought for 40,000. And I was
Right.
like, still this day, it's one of the best deals I ever bought. So I was like, man, I got to do this again.
You still have that house?
I do not. And I even like last night was thinking, man, I should go like figure out who owns that house and go buy it back.
Yeah. Wait for their family to die.
Yeah. But I ended up selling it to an investor. It's funny because I put it on Craigslist because, like I said, that was the king back then. And this investor was buying it. And it was only after he bought it that I realized he was one of my customers at the plumbing company that always did work on his flips. And he ended up buying 4 properties from me that I had rented out. And I used that money to buy an apartment complex.
Nice. That the way you handled that whole transaction where you went and found the house and then you called the realtor and said, drop whatever you're doing. I'll give you $2,500 right now. Come help me with this deal. That's not something you learn in school. That can't be taught is my point. That's talent. That's something you were born with. Just the problem solving ability that you have, like in that situation, the way you described it.
We I would think so. We grew up, like I said, it's 11 people in a 700 square foot house. So we grew up learning if you want something, you got to go get it. Like we weren't getting brand new bicycles like some people had. Like we would go on bulk trash day and walk around the neighborhood and find bicycles in the trash and like take them apart and build like a Frankenstein bike. Like we learned if you want something, go get it.
Yeah. I
So
love that. Is that what you if you have kids someday? I don't know if you have kids, but would you is that you're gonna raise them the same way?
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you could try to teach kids anything these days, but all they know how to do is the Dougie. So, I don't know. I don't know if you can teach them that, but
They don't even do that well.
yeah, I agree. I've been on TikTok, but yeah, I would hope that that's something I can pass down. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a big believer in that too. So I had a real estate investor in El Paso. His name's Preston Brown on my show about a year ago when I was still in El Paso. And I said, "How do you identify a good deal? Where do you go look for deals?" And he said, the four D's of finding a good deal: death, divorce, disease, and drugs."
I would agree with that. I will tell you this: every amazing deal that I've ever purchased, including commercial real estate, including multifamily, including houses. Every one of them was filled with syringes and as many beer cans as you could imagine.
There you go.
And I'm like, man, if they would have just took all these to scrapyard, they probably could have paid their rent or their mortgage or whatever and still had
Right.
their home. Um, so I would say even if death was involved, it's usually some drugs and alcohol
Well,
too.
he the way he described it is he went and made friends with a bunch of probate attorneys, and then
Yeah.
he said, "Hey, I know you're gonna come across properties every now and then where you have a bunch of what is it called, relatives dickering over
Yeah. For the estate
the
sales.
inheritance." And so he's like, "I'll take that problem off your hand. I'll offer you cash, and call me when you have something like that." And he said he was buying 4 or 5 houses a month. He would get calls from these attorneys, and everybody, the attorney wants to be done with it, the family wants to be done with it, everybody just wants to take their cut and walk away.
Yeah.
And so he would just come in and scoop it up.
Yeah, there's a lot of places now where you can purchase these lists and get probate lists, utility shut off lists, which is either people turn off their utilities to move or they died or whatever. There's also people that are getting foreclosed on. You can get pre foreclosure lists
Sure.
and all that. So, uh, I've chased those lists before. I've made a little bit of money doing it. There's people I know that do that for a living. It works.
Hmm. So, okay, you started your plumbing company, you had some money saved up, you came across this deal, that was your foot in the door
Yeah.
in real estate. So, for somebody who, let's say, right now wants to get into real estate and doesn't have cash to buy a house, I asked you this question on your Facebook one time, and you said you gave me an answer that I don't know. I couldn't really figure out exactly what that meant. You said what you want to do is identify a problem and then provide a solution.
That's always the key to any making money is identify the problem and bring a solution. So, like if somebody's in foreclosure, a lot of times, if they don't want to get foreclosed on, don't want to ruin their credit, I'll tell them like, "Hey, how much are you behind on your mortgage?" They'll be like, "Hey, we're only behind like $5,000." I'll be like, "Okay, I'll pay the $5,000 to save your credit if you deed the property in my name and I make your mortgage payments for you." That's called subject to investing. There's a lot of people if their property is free and clear, where I can go and get a property from them owner finance. And I've learned there's a lot of people, especially out in the country, where they have like a number stuck in their head, and the property might only be worth 30,000, and they're like, "No, I have to have 40." I don't know where they came up with this number. Maybe their cousin told it to them. Whatever. They have to have 40,000. Okay, I'll give you 40,000, but I want to do no money down and I don't want to make a payment to you for a year. And so that way I've got time to like get a tenant in here and start making some money. And I want my payments to be like really low, like 300 a month, but you're going to get your 40,000. And it's going to take me 30 years to pay you off. They don't care as long as they get that number in their head. So I've had deals that I've purchased where I put no money down or $1,300 down. I just closed on one in Corsicana, which is in Navarro, halfway between here and Dallas. And I paid $1,300 down and paying 600 a month during the hottest real estate market. I could probably rent the place out for 1,500 a month.
Let me break that down a little bit, a little more step by step. So, because okay, it's like me showing somebody how to do an armbar just by doing the armbar. But I gotta like, if you've never done an armbar, I gotta show you like, okay, you grab the shoulder, you turn, you drop the hips, whatever. So, like, how do you even go about finding these problems? How are you meeting these people?
Um, well, like I said, you can either chase lists. You can go find people that had properties for sale on the MLS and their expired listings because they didn't get their price. So people chase for sale by owners that haven't sold. Um, a lot of times you could just drive around. That's what I've always been best at, drive around and find just the crappiest properties in the neighborhood. I mean, you live in a great neighborhood, but I guarantee you, like, there's that one neighbor that everybody hates. Sooner or later, he's got the 2 foot tall grass and like all of his blinds are broken and all that stuff. Sooner or later, you can approach that guy and you're going to be able to buy his property because if you don't, he's probably going to get foreclosed on because if you live your life like that, I can promise you their financials are the same way.
So that's opportunities in distraught properties
Yeah.
most of the time,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah. And it brings value add opportunities, especially in the multifamily and commercial. There's a commercial property I bought on I-30, which is a major highway, cuts right through Dallas. Um, it was on the city's T20 list, which is the worst 20 worst properties in the city of Dallas. And so like the city hates this property. Like they know it. There was nobody that works for a city that didn't know this property and they hated it. I purchased that property and every single time they act like I'm the enemy and they hate me because I bought this property and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna fix it up. And they're like, yeah, that's what the last 15 people that bought it said. But it's just too tore up. I'm like, well, that's because they don't know what they're doing. Here's pictures of other projects that I've done, and they still don't look at them. They don't believe you. But once I get started, and I always do the outside first because that instills confidence in the neighbors, the police, and the city. They see what I do, and they're like, oh, okay. And then instead of them being your enemy and like just beating you up for no reason and co-compliancing you for no reason because they want to like get you out of there. Now they're on your side and they're like, how can I help you? Hey, did you know that we've got some funds that we could help contribute to fixing up this property? And then all of a sudden they went from your enemy to your best friend.
My sister is watching and she commented because we've been looking to find some properties to flip. And I've been a little bit too picky, probably. And she's a little bit too aggressive. Like when she sees a house, she's like, I'm buying this fucking house right now. And I'm like, okay, let's first examine it. Like, let's talk to the realtor. Let's run, like, get the comps from the neighbor. She's like, no, let's just fucking buy it. Right. She's been driving me crazy. So she come to, you see, the flip houses that I find are good.
Well, just because they're trash doesn't make it a good deal. So you got to know your numbers. Now, I can say this.
Thank you.
As of a year ago, I won't say right now, but as of a year ago, I could look at any property in DFW and immediately know what it's worth and immediately know
Right.
what it was going to cost to fix it up. Now I can't do that anymore because prices keep changing so much. I have no clue.
Uh-huh.
Like I don't even know how. Actually, I know for a fact GCs don't know either. Like everybody's just kind of winging it. I know some huge developers doing multi-million-dollar projects, and like they're not telling anybody, but they're completely winging it right now because like, I don't know. I could bid a job.
Is that because prices are changing so fast?
Yeah, they're changing so fast. And then like at first labor wasn't changing with it, but then that caught up with it. Now gas is going up. So that's driving up prices
Sure.
on the labor and the material. And so now like I'm just trying to guess double of what it used to be. But I used to know as of a year ago, I could walk up to any random house and do what I wanted to do for 30 grand. That's definitely not the case no more. Now the typical remodel, like full gut, replace everything remodels costing somewhere around $80,000, which is a lot. Like,
Yeah.
especially when people aren't trying to sell stuff cheap enough to give you that kind of margin.
Yeah. And that's kind of been my concern. That's really been my primary concern is like, okay, we have to look at, well, there's a couple of things that I've been worried about is how much room do we have, right? What's the margin? Obviously, that's number one on any deal. Is
Yeah,
like, what do we estimate it's going to cost us? And we can't. The couple of houses that she's looked at and tried to get answers from contractors, it's like you said, we cannot get a straightforward answer. And so I'm like, okay, we're guessing what it's going to cost us. So whatever cost somebody tells me, if they tell me it's going to be 30,000 to fix it, I'm gonna prepare for 40,000.
Yeah.
And then
Minimum, I would mark it up
yeah,
25% because nobody knows right now because
right.
it's just changing constantly. We were working on a 4,000 square foot commercial building that I had purchased, and we were in a partnership with the city remodeling this whole thing. And then I just get like a text from one of my AC guys that does work for me all the time. He's like, "Hey, by the way, I just got an email in 2 weeks. All the AC units are going up 50%." And
50%.
I'm nowhere near ready for
So
AC units
just
yet.
buy 50 of them right now.
So I was like, all right, well, let me buy all that stuff and I'm gonna keep it at my house. Like I've
Wow.
got a shop and like my shop that was supposed to keep my side by side and my tractor in it. Like they're both sitting outside and it's full of doors and AC units and light fixtures and um, just trying to do everything I can to even come close to being in budget. Luckily, the only thing that's saving everybody is that inflation's also going up. So whenever you're going over rehab on your deals, the inflation is saving your butt by giving you that extra equity. Because if we didn't have the inflation, everybody would be upside down on their rehabs right now.
You mean if the price of goods went up, but not the price of the property?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
And
definitely.
so the mistake is a lot of investors know, okay, rehabs have gone up, but the margins have gotten smaller, which there's no way you can make a profit on these houses. And so instead of either buying less deals and being more picky or just changing the plan, they won't do that. They just have to keep buying deals. I don't understand if it's like because they're addicted to it, which you can be addicted to it, or if like they want to keep showing people they're still buying deals. I know a lot of people do that, and I've seen people are just like burying themselves in a hole. But I just changed what I do. When I first started buying houses in 2013, I could buy any house for $30,000 at the time, and then in like 2015, 2016, when State Farm was the first California company that came over here, like the first big one, and they just started taking off, and they were like immediately 100 grand, like prices had tripled
Wow.
overnight. And I was like, man, I don't want to buy houses right now. Like that's insane, which they were still really cheap compared to what you can buy them for today. So
Sure.
I should have kept buying
And
them,
in 10 years, we'll be saying the same thing.
but I was like, I've got to switch it up. And so I started looking around. I'm like, how can I get the same equity, which is like the good deals, and how can I get the same cash flow? And then I found condos. Like at the time in Dallas, you could buy any condo, like close, like in good parts, good locations of Dallas, but they weren't like it's kind of the hood. I could buy them all day long for like 10 grand a piece. And I'm like, how is that not a good deal to be able to buy any kind of home for $10,000? And the HOAs, for all everybody's like, yeah, but there's an HOA. The HOAs was only $100 a month, and that included water, so it didn't hurt the cash flow. I was buying them for 10 grand. I was renting them out for 900 a month,
Wow.
and so like I'm getting my money back
In
first year.
10 months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very first year. And so I immediately bought 12 of those. I'd buy one, remodel it, rent it, buy one, remodel it, rent it. And like always, I wish I would have bought more. Um,
So just real quick, we touched on this a little bit earlier, and then we kind of drifted away a little bit. For somebody, let's say, who doesn't have cash right now and wants to buy
yeah.
a property, and that's when I asked you about finding a problem and solving it. But at the end of the day, you need the cash. Aside from hard lenders, is there any advice you'd give people? Something to because where are you going to get the
So
funding from, right? Like if I
okay,
saw a
so
great deal right now on a house that I think I could rehab and it'll sell for 250,000 and it's listed for 80. And I'm in competition with a bunch of cash
I
investors.
have a friend who bought a $14 million office building with no cash, and
How do you do that?
I'm about to break it down for you.
Okay.
And before I do, let me tell you, this guy had very little experience in real estate. Like he had done some flips and stuff, but totally not $14 million property ready. I wouldn't even know 5 people on my hand that I think could handle a property like that. Not because of the amount of money, because everything's different. The leasing's different, everything. But so one, there's hard money lenders out there, and hard money lenders, not let me be very clear. There are a lot of them that won't do credit checks, that don't do background checks, that don't want to see your tax returns, don't want to see your paycheck stubs. all they care about is the deal.
Mhm.
Show me the property.
Right.
If the property's cheap enough, we're going to loan you the money. Why? Because if it works out, you pay them high interest, which you're only paying monthly, so that's not really a big deal. And if it doesn't work out, they're getting this property at a discount. So like, there's no way they're really going to lose. But I could go right now and buy $100,000 house with hard money and not pay anything up front and have to pay 12% interest, but on $100,000 property that'd be $1,000 a month.
Right.
I mean, you could have any kind of job and probably come up with that. And so some people are doing that, and then depending on what your exit strategy is, are you going to flip it, or are you going to rent it, or whatever? Do you list it on the MLS and just sell it? Do you refinance it out with a regular bank at a lower interest rate that lowers your payment? Like, what do you do? But there's so many ways to get in deals. I mean, I've walked away from closings with a check in my hand where I didn't spend money, like I made money. I bought a house in Mesquite that at the time was probably worth 165,000. I bought it for 47,000. I probably put 10, 15,000 into it, cleaning it up. I had it appraised. It appraised for the 165. They'll give you 70% of that. So
Oh, I see what you're saying. The hard lender gave you 70% of the 165.
yeah, so that's
Okay.
115,000.
Yeah.
I bought it for 47 and I put 15 into it. So let's say I've got 65 into it and they give me 115. I'm walking away with a check, $50,000, $60,000 and got a property.
That's awesome.
And so there's a lot of ways where you don't have to have the money.
Let me take you back to the $14 million deal real quick. How did that happen?
So he got a hard loan. This is okay. It was hard to put together. I hope to God anybody listening to this doesn't try to replicate it. It didn't work out for this guy, and not because he wasn't a smart person. It just didn't work out. But he did get the property. But he got a hard money lender who said, "I'll lend 70% of the as is value." It wasn't worth 14 million as is. It was worth 14 million with the value add, which means once you get it fully occupied and leased at top rents. Because in commercial real estate, it's not like a house. A house is worth $100,000 no matter what. People are like, "Oh, I'm going to remodel the kitchen. It's worth more." No, it's not. It can be worth less, if it doesn't have a nice kitchen, but it can't be worth more.
That's a great point.
But in commercial real estate, when it comes to multifamily or just retail office, anything like that, it's valued solely off the amount of income that it makes. So if it was fully occupied and at top rents, it's worth $14 million. He had somebody who was willing to sell it to him for $9 million.
Mhm.
And so he got a hard money lender is like, okay, I'll do 70% of $9 million. I don't know what the math is on that, probably somewhere like $7.5 million. And so where's he going to come up with this other $2.5 million? And so what he did was he talked the seller into doing owner finance for the other $2.5 million on a balloon payment to where he had to repay that after like 3 to 5 years. And that hard money loan is what's called a bridge loan, which means it's supposed to be very, very short and temporary. So he did that, immediately leased up some of the properties. That didn't take long. He probably did that in 90 days. Now it's a $11 million property. So now if he refinances again, he can get 70% of that, which is probably 800,000. So now he can refinance the owner out of it, and he only owes one person now instead of two. And so his goal was remodel it a little bit, make it a little bit nicer. Not that that brings in the value, but it increases the rents, get more people to lease a place, get it worth 14 million, refinance it for 11, pay people off, put 200 grand in his pocket and be done. It was working perfectly for probably, I'd say, about 2 years until he was running low on money because he overspent on the rehab. He made a few mistakes from lack of experience, which this is not me talking bad about him.
That's okay. You can
I
talk
don't,
about it.
I,
You
I
can say
don't,
whatever you want.
I don't have, no, I think he was a smart guy and I'm glad he pulled it
kidding.
off. It's just, I don't own a single property that's $14 million either. So I would probably make some wrong moves. He added a gym to this office building. I can't imagine what that cost. And then he was like, that's not making me money. So then he took the gym out. I would guess he probably lost 50 grand just on that one mistake. But things like that, he lost some money. He was hanging on by a thread, but he was going to pull it off. And then the AC went out and
For
to
the
the
whole
whole building,
building.
to the whole
Oh,
building. So
yikes.
he goes and he gets a quote. Quote comes back at 100 grand. He doesn't have 100 grand. And so, 2 weeks go by. He's trying to figure out how to get the money. Tenants are moving out. Are you going to go 2 weeks without AC? No.
Fuck no, not in
And
Texas.
so he's dropping tenants like flies. And I don't even know if he ever got the AC fixed or not, but he lost enough tenants and lost enough money that it didn't work out, and he ended up losing the property.
Man.
But
So
it
so
just
in
goes
that
to
in that
show
in that scenario, so he bought it for 9 million. When you say he lost it, meaning what? He lost $9 million, or he had to sell it for a fraction of what he bought it for?
the
And
bank took it back. He didn't lose any money because he didn't have any money in the deal, but um, he lost the property, and that could have had $5 million in equity.
so, okay, but what is the impact of that on the investor?
It depends.
Like, there's
So
got to be some kind of repercussion to losing a $14 million property that you were invested in, whether with your actual money or you were just brokering the deal.
it depends on the loan. So a lot of loans out there, if they exceed $1 million, are non-recourse. So would you wonder why Trump and all these guys are out there just doing YOLO stuff? It's because they have non-recourse loans, and before you go blame them, the government's the one that gives these loans. But that means that in the event that they default, as long as the government takes back the property, nothing happens to them. And so they don't lose any money. They don't have to file bankruptcy or anything like that. And so
So you're telling me that people's biggest problem is they're not taking big enough loans?
yes.
Okay.
So there's a saying in real estate that you just need to add another zero. And so, you're out there trying to make, $1,000 as a hustler. And what I try to explain to people is like, who hasn't slung iPhones before? Like everybody at some point has sold an iPhone, even if it's like ones that you bought and flipped, or if it's your old phone, sell an iPhone for $100, right? Make your money. Okay, well, if you can do that, you can sell a car for 1,000. If you can do that, you can sell a house for 100,000. If you can do that, you can
Sure.
do a apartment building for $10 million.
A deal's a
It's
deal.
it's literally the exact same amount of work as the sad part. It's just all about what you know and who you know. So that's the thing. And
It's about, I think part of it is also it scares people. Because now the no recourse loan that you mentioned, that's interesting. I need to look into that. I don't know about that.
yeah, so
But
all these
it's
apartment complexes, everywhere you look, it doesn't matter what state you're in. Look left, look right. You see an apartment complex that's 100 doors or more. I guarantee you it's got a non-recourse loan, and it's owned by a syndication, which means that it's some guy who's raising people's money and taking your retirement and buying it and working the whole deal with other people's retirement money. And he has a non-recourse loan. And so he
but
has zero skin in the game.
where does that money come from though? How does the bank get their money back? The
So
bank gives you $1 million, you get a loan for $1 million, non-recourse. The deal
comes from the US government. So you got these Fannie Freddie loans. Um, they've got these non-recourse loans out there, and not just for apartments, but also for commercial real estate.
that's interesting. Do you like apartments or commercial better? Do you have a preference or you do both?
I do both. I would say if I had to pick, it really depends on the season. So there's nothing safer than apartments. But man, nothing makes you want to rip your hair out either. Like
That's what I've always
if you
said.
think about like what's the kind of person who lives in a house? He's probably like a guy that's got a good job, got a hot wife, got some kids, like has his life together. Things to lose, right? All those things that you want to lose. Now let's think about the guy that lives in the apartment. This is a guy that's probably 21, punched some holes in the doors, like has a new job every 6 months, you know, really hasn't gotten your life together, can't keep a girlfriend. And so do you really want to be committed to 300 of those kind of people and then chase rent from them and replace the doors that they kick down, and all the parties where they like destroy
Yeah.
the carpet and all that?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you have good management, then you don't have to know about everything that happens. But I've got friends that own 300 unit complexes, and they're like, hey, they'll text me, hey, who do you know that can clean up like when somebody commits suicide?
Oh.
And I'm like, I'm glad I'm the first person you think of when this kind of stuff happens. But luckily, I know the answer.
What's the answer?
Environmental companies, they're out there and they will charge you an arm and a leg to come out there and clean up the blood and everything like that.
Wouldn't it be easier just to replace the carpet?
Yeah, yeah, it would.
I hear club soda works great for that.
Oh,
You ever tried it?
peroxide, actually.
What is it?
Peroxide.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you think about killing anybody, peroxide gets rid of all blood stains. It'll get out carpet, sheets, everything.
Wow.
Um,
We're learning so much on this podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, Google it. I'm serious. But what I like about commercial real estate is you take all the emotions out of it.
Sure.
I'm not gonna have Amber, Jessica, Steve, and Bill blowing up my phone, cussing at me, telling me how I'm this terrible landlord because they're late on rent and I'm demanding it. But if it's a commercial property, and you're leasing it out to supercuts, like there's no emotion involved. They're like, hey, instead of this 1 year lease that your tenant's doing at the apartments, we want to do a 5 year, 10 year, 15 year lease. I own a Lone Star title loan building. I own the building, not the business.
Yeah.
Lone Star title loan leases it from me. And, they've got 5 year lease with 3 options to renew. So for 15 years, I may have them as a tenant. And it's a triple net property. So they're responsible for any of the repairs. They pay the property taxes. So if taxes go up and everybody's screaming and crying about it, it doesn't affect me at all. The only thing that could go wrong, the only one thing that could go wrong is if the economy busts, are they going to file bankruptcy on me?
What happens then? They can break the lease and walk away?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also by the government. So,
Sounds like the government's up to a lot of fuckery.
Well, it's, they do a lot of things to help stimulate the economy, and they do a lot of exit strategies. So, everything that every president has stood up to a podium and complained about, just know that they wrote the law that made it possible. So I just,
Okay.
instead of complaining about it, I just learned to play the game.
Learn to play the game. That's right. Yeah, that's the key, right?
Yeah.
None of us make the rules, so you might as well learn how to play the game.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
Yeah, you could sit there, you could complain about welfare, or you could get on it. Maybe I should have done that. Probably be easier in real estate. But
What?
yeah, I've seen these tenants that are on Section 8, plus they got food stamps, plus they got SNAP, and sometimes I'm a little jealous.
Oh, stop it!
And they're slinging drugs on the side.
Yeah, they're great. They're living the American dream.
Unfortunately, I know you're joking, but unfortunately, I think that's become the American dream for most.
Well, I mean, there's something that sounds appealing about that life, the life of no responsibility and no stress, right? And it's like all your necessities are provided for you by something, the government, or at a young age, it's your parents, and then it becomes the government. And a lot of people never want to stop breastfeeding, so they just want the government to keep breastfeeding them for the rest of their life, right? Because they don't want to have to get their own food, and so that's the case with that. But it's the same mentality as like these people who just want to be on the beach all the time, and that's not realistic. Like, I want to be on a beach drinking margaritas is not a life plan. That's a vacation postcard quote.
Yeah, and it's not a lifestyle for me. I do like the thought of knowing like my needs are going to be met.
Sure.
But that's like probably the only good thing about being wealthy for me, because I'm not ever going to go buy a Lambo or anything like
Why
that.
not?
I made money when I was starting my plumbing company, and luckily I got rich when I was young. But I did that, and I bought stupid stuff, and I bought the $5,000 watch, and I bought 20 pair of $300 shoes, and bought the fancy car. And I later learned like none of that matters. It really doesn't. So
It's just not for you.
yeah. And so now like I see like these kids that get into real estate. I say kids, they're like 21. They get into real estate all cocky, they made 6 figures for the first time, and they're every picture with the Rolex like this. And I'm like, they're like, "Where's your Rolex? How many you got?" And I'm like, "I got an Apple Watch, but because I'm trying to like do business over here."
Yeah.
But I just learned like one, when you achieve a certain amount of wealth, nobody cares when you flex at all. Like I know
What do you mean?
I,
Of course, people care when you flex. Look at Money Mayweather and Conor McGregor and all these
he's
guys.
not
Michael Jordan.
he's not doing that to impress people with money. He's doing that to impress the people that give him the money. So
Right.
that's a marketing tactic.
Right.
But I know one billionaire. I know a lot of millionaires, and you get to a point where you realize like flexing just doesn't matter unless you're in a marketing business. If you're in a marketing business, yeah,
It's all about the flex.
it's all about the flex. Like have every Nike there ever is, have a McLaren, have two 21-year-old girlfriends, and get you 5 Rolexes. But none of that stuff provides value to my life. I've reached a point where all I care about is like my family, hanging out with them. Like I don't even care about my friends no more. It's just like hanging out with my family and just making sure their needs are met. My grandmother's a widow now, so I always make sure like her lawn's taken care of. I go there once a month and like, sneak around the house, checking the fridge, does it still work? And
Is there anything that you do splurge on?
food.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that can get expensive, but I mean, like if you go Johnny Depp, like $20,000 a month on wine, but for the most part, that can get too crazy.
It's because like to me, like I'm always working. You've seen that.
Yeah.
If anybody follows me on Facebook, Jawad Dashti,
Follow his business page, not his personal
my
page.
business page, not the personal. I'm not gonna put any business stuff on my personal page. So if you want to learn more about this, follow my business page. But if you follow me on there, like I really don't take breaks. I enjoy working.
Yeah.
And the only kind of hanging out I ever do is when somebody that I work with is like, "Hey, do you want to do lunch?" That's actually, I'm not fat. I don't know for the people that can see me on camera. I'm not fat, but I'm definitely a lot thicker than I was in high school. And that's because when I first got in real estate, 4 times a day, people were like, "Hey, do you want to do lunch?"
Sure.
And I would promise you I would do 3 lunches a day.
Yeah.
And people would be like, "Eat." And I'm like, "No, I just literally came from lunch." And they're like, especially, how Arabs are. They don't care. Eat.
Yeah.
And it's like, "Oh my God. Okay. Give me an egg roll or something." And, so it's eventually I had to learn to tell people like, "No, I just want water." Like,
yeah,
that was a hard thing.
Sure.
To do.
No, it is. It is. I'm the same way with when I start doing a lot. There are sometimes where, because I'm in pharmaceutical sales, and there are stretches where I have a luncheon scheduled every day, and sometimes a dinner, not usually, or sometimes there's a breakfast meeting and a lunch meeting, and then maybe a dinner. And it's like, yeah, by the end of the week, I've eaten way too much Olive Garden and Chick-fil-A and whatever I'm catering barbecue. And it's like Friday comes around and I've put on 8-9 pounds that week.
Yeah.
It's pretty brutal.
It's definitely happened. But I'll splurge on that. I'll definitely splurge on real estate.
Yeah, that's not, I mean, that's different though, because that's business. That's making you money. You're not spending, you're actually.
I know, but it just depreciating assets. I can't do it.
Doesn't work for you.
Can't
Rolexes don't depreciate though.
Yeah, they don't. I just
Guns.
I have some, but because I live on a ranch.
Yeah.
So I'm not like a big collector of them either. I don't know. Like there's nothing that I really, I don't know if I could say this. I'll pause for a second so you can cut it out if you want.
Why?
I definitely like to go support single mothers at the strip club. So I'll splurge on that. But I pause for a minute. So if you have to cut it, you can.
No, we're not cutting anything. This is live.
Oh, all right. Awesome. But yeah, I'll definitely.
What a humanitarian.
Yeah, I know. They have kids too. They can't just be eating macaroni and cheese all the time.
That's right.
So I'll go donate a couple $100, couple $1,000, depends who I'm with.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say any names to put some married friends on blast. But, we definitely go and have a good time sometimes.
There you go. That's cool. I like guns. That's probably the one thing that I spend on the most. But I also I know a good deal when I see one. I know when I pretty much every gun that I own is now worth quite a bit more than when I bought it.
Yeah.
And so there's always, I like that comfort in the back of my mind is like, if I have to, I can liquidate my guns and actually make a profit and have some money. So that's kind of how I look at things. I'm not into jewelry really. A little, I mean, a little, but not. I don't know if the one watch that I want, sort of as a life goal, is the Jacobs Astronomia. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't, but I
Oh
will tell
man,
you
I'll pull
this.
it up. I'll pull it up.
All I ever wanted when I was younger was the Salvatore Ferragamo watch. That was
Uh-huh.
$1,300. And
That's it.
now hold on. See, you said that. And so I was about to say, you're going to be like, that's it. But I was so poor that it
Yeah.
was impossible. I was never going to be able to afford this watch.
I get you.
And then when I finally started making some money, I went to the store and I looked at the watch, pulled it out and told them I'm going to buy it. And they put it in my hand. I looked at it and I was like, I do not want this watch no more. And I set it back down. That's
so
intense.
that's the Jacobs Astronomia, and those are $1 million. And I saw one the last time I was in Vegas. I went to some watch store and I saw one and it was just like, oh my God, there it is. I want it. But here's the thing. I believe that it's kind of like what you just said. I believe that when I get to a point where I can buy it, I won't buy it. It's just that I want to be able to buy it.
Yeah.
I don't like the feeling of I can't. That bothers me.
Yeah,
It's about capability more than obtaining the watch.
Yeah. And that's a good trait to have because, like, I've got a buddy of mine. I've known him since I was like 5 years old. And unfortunately, he's my biggest hater. And he doesn't mean to be. But he, like, when I started my plumbing company, he was always like, if you post about your plumbing company one more time, I'm gonna block you. We can still be friends. Like,
fuck him. And then don't be his friend. Block him.
No, he really is a great guy. He just, what it is, he can't see like doing these things. And one day, like, I said something about, he was like, dude, you're a millionaire. Like, you made it. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But like, being a billionaire is cooler. And he's like, just looked at me like I was stupid. And he's like, you could never be a billionaire.
Cut him out.
I was like, why?
Cut him out. Kick him
I'm
to
like,
the curb.
why? And I'm like, what do you see in Mark Zuckerberg where you're like, yeah, that guy's got such better qualities and traits?
Well, he's fluent in Mandarin. I don't know what that has to do with anything.
But he also does not splurge because he wears the same Walmart clothes every day.
Well, like Warren Buffett, man, that's a crazy one. I mean, he still lives in a house that he bought, I think, in the 50s, and he drives like a 20-year-old car.
Yeah.
And he eats McDonald's every day for breakfast. He spends $2.16 for breakfast.
I'll tell you this. I do drive a decent truck. I'll say a nice truck. To me, it's nice, but like, I'm going to drive it until it has 300,000 miles on it. Just like I did with my last truck was a Dodge Ram 1500. I bought it at a very good deal. I waited a long time to make sure I got one at a good deal. I drove it till I had 300,000 miles on it. And second it hit 300,000, I was done. And people were like, I can't believe you finally got rid of that truck. People were always like, when are you going to sell it and buy a Ferrari? So I got me a Ford Ranger. It's a really nice truck. They go for 45 grand. I got mine for 20, and I'm going to drive that thing until the wheels fall off. And then I will go get me something.
How'd you get it for 20?
I literally just looked once a week all over the United States and finally found one that was in Houston. And it was a lease, and it was like 10,000 miles on it. And I was like, 10,000 miles off, and
sounds like a great deal.
And I'm getting it for 25 grand less, like 60% less. And I was like, yeah, I want to buy this. I called them. I asked them for a Carfax on it, no accidents or anything. I'm like, all right, I'm going to take it. I'm wiring you the money now. I'm going to drive there and pick it up.
I like your brain is all numbers. You break down everything into percentages. Like that's the percent of the value that I paid. I like that.
If you knew how bad that works for me, and I've got a buddy named RJ. I'm sure he's not watching this. He's got his own podcast, and he unfortunately only watches his own. So yeah, I'm making fun of you if you watch this. But when he buys a jacket, he's like, I don't care how much it costs. I just have to get it down to a penny. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, so if I buy $1,000 jacket, he's like, all right, I wear it once, it's $1,000 jacket. If I wear it twice, it's $500 jacket, 500 per time that I wore it.
Depends on how much he sweats.
Yeah, he was like, I just keep wearing it until I've gotten my money out of it. And I'm like, I'm glad that you can look at it that way.
Oh, that's what you're saying. So let me ask you this. You don't splurge on stuff, on items, cars, jewelry, none of that. You're open about your net worth, which I think is interesting because a lot of people don't want to talk about their income, but you proudly mention over and over that you're in the 8 figures, which is, for people who can't do math, over $10 million.
I was taught.
Here's my question. I want to know your thoughts on this. what's the point of making all this money? What, like, later,
It's
like when
it's not for me.
you're 90 years old, who's it for?
I can tell you who it's for. First,
Aside from the single mothers.
first let me start by saying I was raised to not talk about money. You know,
Same,
everybody who they call a
because your parents were
boomer
poor.
or whatever, like you were told not to talk about money.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of good reasons for that, you know,
No, there's
lawsuits,
not. They're
things
just
like
poor.
that. Probably.
Yeah.
But I've learned now, like, you have to attract money with money. And you know, just me talking about it on this podcast, I promise you some banker is going to watch this and they're going to hit me up on Facebook within the next 30 days. And they're going to be like, hey, how can I do business with you and give you some money? Um, so that's why I openly talk about it. And plus, I want to show people that you can do it, because I grew up thinking, like, I dropped out of school because I was like, why? I can't go to college. Like, we don't even have enough money to go to McDonald's. But I want to show people, like, it doesn't matter where you're starting from, you know, you can get there. But to answer your question, what's it for? I can definitely say that I use it for what I said from the beginning it was for, multiple times just this month. So my father's wife passed away this month, of cancer. Her funeral was just last week.
Mhm.
And my dad called me and he was upset and he was like, hey, I got to go to California because that's where she was in the hospital. And he was like, hey, I need you to come watch the girls, which are my twin sisters that are 15 years old. And at a drop of a hat, I was able to drop everything that I was doing. I was, you know, in Fort Worth doing some business stuff. I dropped everything I was doing, was able to go to my dad's house, watch my sisters, and let my dad go do what he needed to do. And I was able to take off work for the whole week. You know, if I worked somewhere else, I couldn't do that. My grandmother, like I said, is widowed. She's been widowed now for 3 years. Um, Whenever her washer went out, I replaced it. Whenever her dishwasher went out, I replaced it.
Sure.
Her lawn, she was out mowing her lawn like right after my papa passed away. And I was like, no, man. Well, like, do you enjoy doing this? Because if you do, I'll let you do it. But if you don't, there's no way I'm going to allow you to mow this lawn. And so, you know, I pay people to go do her lawn. And it's so that way I can take care of the people that are important to me whenever they need it.
So I love that. But let me ask you this. That's a corollary to that point. I watched an interview with Terry Crews one time, Terry Crews and CT Fletcher. Great interview. And Terry talked about how when he became famous and people started knowing that he's making money, that there was a lot of family members that he had to set firm boundaries for, or to, whatever, and friends alike, because all of a sudden everybody's hitting him up for money.
Yeah.
All of a sudden everybody needs a new dishwasher and a new washing machine and a new roof and all that.
I've been through it.
So tell me about that. How's that going for you?
Okay, so there's a reason why if you post a picture of any millionaire or billionaire on Facebook, everybody's going to tell you how he's an asshole, and he's an asshole because he told somebody no.
Mm.
And unfortunately, I've had to tell a lot of people no. A little brother, he's successful now, but he used to like really sponge a lot of money off me, and that really sucked, and I had to hurt a relationship between us because it wasn't things that he needed; it's things that he wanted, and he wanted to live a very extravagant lifestyle, which I'm sure you can imagine an Arab kid would want to do, and he wanted to do it on
Or
my
just
dime.
any young guy.
Yeah, and he wanted to do it.
You
on
want
my
the
dime.
cars and the girls and the
And
parties and all that. Yeah.
you know, I gave him a place to live. He, you know, lived in one of my properties, and he had one of my vehicles, and I had him on a salary where he didn't really have to do anything. He just had a job title and made money, and that wasn't enough. And I ended up having to let him go, and that really hurt our relationship, which I really hated to happen. I had a cousin who I did a lot for, and you know, he didn't really have his life together even before that. And I'm sure he's going to watch this because he watches all my stuff. And I hate what has happened to our relationship, but, you know, he never did good things with the money. You know, when he didn't have a car, I bought him a truck. He blew the motor on it like immediately. I put a brand new motor in it. Then he let his girlfriend do drugs and drive it through her house like a month later. Yeah. Like it sounds like a freaking TV show. And so like I had to cut him off too. And it's like, okay, like, you know, how many strikes, like I will give you unlimited amounts to fulfill your needs, but it's not needs, it's your desires, your wants, and your bad decisions. And that's something I'm not going to enable. Um, my mother, who, you know, like I said, is somebody that can't ever please. She's remodeling her own house on her own, which I begged her not to do. And she lives in Ohio, so I can't do it for her. But I was like, hey, like, you know, let me send a crew up there to remodel it the way that I remodel it. Let's put your house on the market, sell it top of market. And she's like, no, like you just don't understand the Ohio market out here. We like brown walls and these hideous floors. And I was like, no, like go watch HGTV. Go look. Well, here's my friend on Facebook that flips houses in Ohio. Everybody right now is doing like grade neutral, like walls and, you know, this kind of flooring and all that stuff. And in her head, I'm always wrong. And she was like, but can you give me 10 grand so I can do this remodel on the house? And I was like, no.
Yeah.
And it broke my heart because my mom has always been there for me. We've never gotten along. So she wasn't ever really nice to me, but she was always there for me. And I hated telling her no, but I was like, look, I will pay to remodel your house, but I'm not going to give you the money because you've already told me that you're going to make bad decisions with it.
I support that.
Yeah. And she didn't take it really bad, but I'm pretty sure like there was some spite in that. But yeah, it gets hard because I always have to tell people no.
So another thing that Terry mentioned in that interview is like, if you want some money from me, start a business.
Yeah.
Get something going and I'll help you out. He goes, if you buy 3 lawnmowers, you start mowing shit. All right, I'll buy the 4th one.
Well, so I disagree with that. So I tried that. I tried very unsuccessfully the whole, okay, I won't lend you money, but I'm going to help you start a business.
Is that like that's basically the old don't give a man a fish, teach him how to fish.
Yeah.
Right?
So I tried to help friends start a business. I've done that with at least 10 friends. Never once did I get my money back or did any of it work out.
Dude, you're too nice.
After
the second
not
one,
anymore.
I would just told
not
everyone
anymore.
to fuck
this
off.
is like back in the day. And the reason why is like I felt guilty making money because like I came up poor and a lot of my friends came up poor. So
like I said, you're too nice. Yeah,
And a lot of that was until I met this guy. His name is Justin George. Indian guy. They have no guilt about making money or having money. And this guy was like, what's the problem? And I was like, I don't want people to think I changed. And he's like, if you don't fucking want to change, what are you doing this for?
Right.
And he said it in such a direct way. And I was like, I guess you're right. And so now I've just become okay with being a dick. And now if people want to borrow money, I always tell
but
people.
I don't think you're being a dick. I think you sound like a very nice guy to me.
Well,
incredibly tolerant too.
Well,
I think you're a dick to people who can't get what they want out of you.
Yeah.
And so fuck them.
And so now it's, if you need to borrow money, I will allow anybody to work for it. You know, I've got properties that we're working on all the time. And you see how it's amazing how many people will be like, hey, I have to have this $100 or like my kid's going to die. Like they'll tell you this sobbing story. And I'm like, okay, I got this property. My guys are painting. If you want to show up, be there tomorrow at 7 a.m. If you just work half the day, I'll give you the $100. And they're like, nah. And I'm like, okay, you really didn't need that money that bad. And so it's great because instead of me having to tell them no, like I've given them the opportunity to tell me no.
Yeah, that works.
Which almost everybody does.
Right. So I gotta ask you about this. This is probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen on your Facebook and on your you posted the story, Tanya. This is when she posted that she asked you to get her a cup of coffee and you went and bought her a coffee shop.
Well, like
so for men listening who need some advice on how to keep their woman happy, I would build her a coffee shop.
I would not advise it because she spends all the money at the coffee shop. So
tell me about that. How did that whole thing go down?
Well, I bought a ranch that I ended up actually getting for free. I don't know if you want to go through that or not.
Sure.
But I can run through that quickly.
Okay, go for it.
But I found a property that was 100 acres and I found it at $3,000 an acre. Well, at the time was worth 12,000 acres, so I can get it for 25%. like I told you, a lender will do 70%.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole property was 300,000, but it's worth 1.2 million at the time. So I told a lender, I was like, hey, this, give me 500,000 or whatever on the property. I don't remember how much it was. And so he gave me enough money to not only buy the property, but to build a house, build a shop, put infrastructure on it, roads, electric, all that stuff. So I did that. And then I sold off 40 acres off the property for more than that amount, which paid off the entire loan
Wow.
and put 100K in my pocket. So I got a free 65 acres, a free house, a free shop, free tractor, side by
That's
side, all
amazing.
that, and 100K in my pocket. But I did that, lived in this town that was like a great small town, like what would be like on the 80s TV shows, like where you walk in the stores and they're like, hey, how's it going? How's your kids? Like, how's your dog, your grandma? And they knew everybody by name. But there's just nothing to do in the town. Like, unless you like going to Sonic or Walmart, like that's it. Everything else, I'm driving 45 minutes to Dallas. And um, every day, like Tanya refuses to work without coffee. Like she's just not going to do it. And so every day before we can start working, I've got to drive 30 minutes one direction or another to go to Starbucks. And I was like,
Dude, have you heard of coffee machines? You can actually have one in your house.
okay, well, why don't you tell her about that? Because there's two in the house and she's not using them. But
okay.
So
All right, fair enough.
So she's determined to get her coffee every day before she's going to do anything. And like, I'm getting annoyed because I don't want to start my day at noon. Like, I'm all about getting stuff done.
Yeah.
The value of my time, And she wants to wake up at 10, start her day around 11, get her coffee at 12, and hey, we can start working at 1 and be done by 3 in her world. And so I was like, all right, well, there's like this really cute boutique downtown, but it's like completely abandoned. I'm like, what's the deal with that? And so I ended up buying half of the downtown, got it for nothing, but it needed a lot of work. And so I bought those properties and I was like, okay, like what does this town need? And so the very first thing that I did was um, remodeled and wanted to do a coffee shop. She wanted to run the coffee shop. I was like, there's no way during COVID and everybody's quitting and all this stuff. Like, I'm not starting a business. There's no way. So I remodeled it. And while I'm remodeling it, like there's another small town next to us that has a like cute boutique coffee shop in it. And so I went over there and I was like, hey, do y'all have any interest in opening a second location? And they were like, yeah, we're actually already looking. And I'm like, check out the spot. And they went, looked at it, and they're like, no, absolutely not. This building's ugly. And I'm like, yeah, but look like the work that I do to these buildings, I can make it nice. And they're like, no way. Well, I start remodeling it and posting pictures on Facebook. And then like people keep tagging the coffee shop. They're like, is that building you were talking about? And then like she's seeing how nice it's getting. Now she's begging me to get in the building. And so we worked out a pretty good lease and got her in there. And man, it changed the town. Just a coffee shop. You wouldn't imagine. There was not a single place where you could like sit down and meet with somebody. And that alone
In downtown Dallas.
now this is I live 30 minutes outside of Dallas.
Okay.
So I live like in a small town outside of it. And it's that coffee shop alone changed the whole vibe of that town. And so then like immediately we had a boutique shop that was like, hey, we want to put all this stuff in here. And then like it just changed it from like this abandoned Wild West vibe to like just a very boutique place, like where tourists would want to come.
Wow.
And so, now we've got a restaurant that leased from us. They're opening up on Friday.
Cool.
That's going to be their soft opening. And so we've got all this different stuff that's leased out there. There was already one boutique shop there, but it was like real trashy looking, but they wanted to compete with all the other stores. So they fixed it up and everybody kind of got in a battle of like making their places nicer. And now like it's an amazing downtown. So I love that.
So what is the shop called? What is the coffee shop called? I'm going to Dallas this weekend. I'm gonna hit it
This
up.
coffee shop is
They have
called
croissants.
It's called Giddy Up and Go Coffee
Okay.
Shop. Like I said, it's about 30 minutes east of Dallas.
Okay.
I don't know what part of Dallas you're going to.
Plano.
Plano? Yeah, that's wrong direction.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, but Yeah, everything. So I'm never gonna buy anything in like Plano, Frisco, or anything like that because, like I was talking about earlier, the value add stuff. Like Frisco's already nice, and so if you were gonna buy Frisco, you wanted to buy it 20 years ago when it was farm town,
Mm,
because you could buy anything for 100 grand, and now that stuff's probably worth 10 million.
wow.
You don't want to go buy something in Frisco now for 10 million, and then 5 years from now is worth 11 million. Like that's not where the profit
Right.
is. So that's why like a lot of stuff that I buy in Oak Cliff, which is kind of like a ran down suburb of Dallas. I was buying houses there 2 years ago for 20,000 a piece, and now I'm selling them for 150,000 a piece.
Nice.
Like, where are you going to get those kind of returns? So I go for the value add stuff.
Sure. Now, when you're looking at a real estate deal, what are the things that just make you go, "Fuck that, I am buying this"? Aside from the price not being right, like characteristics of the property that just make you go,
It just
not doing it.
depends what it is. So if
Or is
it's
there no such thing? If the price is right, you buy it no matter what.
If the price is right, I'll make money off of it no matter what. But I might wholesale it where I don't even have to own it, where I just get it under contract and sell the contract to somebody else that wants to own it. Maybe I'll make 20 grand, 50 grand, whatever.
That's a
And
thing?
yeah, that's the thing.
How does that work?
So for people who are watching, you can look it up on YouTube and type in either wholesaling houses or assignment of contract. But you can get a property. So say there's a property worth 100 grand. I always use 100 grand because it's a round number.
Yeah.
But say you find a property for 100 grand that's worth 100 grand, but you find it for 50 grand. You can get it under contract for 50,000 and you can sell the contract. So, I've done that for an apartment complex that's in Longview, which is like way out in the sticks, to an investor in San Antonio. And I made $75,000 off that deal.
So you got the contract, meaning you made an offer to buy the property, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you signed the contract. If you didn't sell that contract by by the closing date, then you would have ended up having to buy the property, right?
No, because I had an option period on it, so I had paid $300 to have the option to back out.
So you're trying to sell it before the
Yeah,
option
I know
period runs out.
sometimes I'm like, "Hey, I'm gonna wholesale it, and if I can't, I'll just buy it."
Okay,
Sometimes I'm kinda iffy on it, but, like, I didn't wanna buy it out there because it was so far outside the metroplex. I didn't have a lender willing to lend on it because God forbid
gotcha,
if I ever got foreclosed on, the lender doesn't wanna own something that far away.
gotcha.
This is like halfway between Dallas and Shreveport, Louisiana. So, but I sold it to an apartment guy named David Fisher. He's a big investor out here in San Antonio. He bought that property from me, made $75,000, and yeah, I didn't have to put any money in the deal. It didn't cost me anything. So
That's pretty cool. Um, I lost my train of thought for a second, but well, let me ask you this. I asked you recently about your thoughts on Airbnb, so you talked a little bit about buying and selling, flipping, wholesaling, all that. Um, you said that that's the one thing you've never done is Airbnb a property.
yeah, I really have no interest in it. If I did it, it would only be like if I bought something like really amazing. Like if I bought a house that's on the Riverwalk out here in San Antonio, I would Airbnb that. But like just regular houses, no. And the reason why is one, it's more of a job that it is passive income. So it's really going to be hard to scale. Now I know you can go hire like super hosts and things like that. Um, but a lot of times I've really broke down the deals and took it down to the true net profit, and I don't find it to be that much more profitable than renting. Also, I don't like to do things that are governed. And so like, I don't want to own a gun store because they're always talking about trying to, ban guns, Airbnb. I literally just saw today where they had banned Airbnbs in some state. I think it was Nebraska, and now you can only own 2 and 1 has to be your personal house.
I've seen that. Yeah,
And, they're just doing that everywhere, and, like, in LA, they'll be like, "Yeah, you can do it. No, you can't do it. Yeah, you can do it. No, you can't do it." And the problem that we have, which I think is gonna be our next real estate bubble, is a lot of people are now buying real estate not based off the rents, but based off the Airbnb rents, which is higher, and I'm scared that they're gonna, buy them based solely off the one exit strategy, which any good investor no matter if it's, you know, flips or rentals or owner finance or what. You're supposed to have multiple exit strategies. You can't say this is the one thing that I'm going to do, and if it doesn't work, I'm screwed.
Mhm.
It's not a good plan.
Yeah.
And so that's like jumping out of an airplane and flapping your arms and hoping that you fly. And so they do that, and if it does get banned, if the government's like, hey, Airbnb is causing the housing shortage because there's all these properties that people can't live in long term. It doesn't have to make sense for the government to say it. We've all learned that. And so if they do that and they ban Airbnbs, or what if they say Airbnb can only now, do like hotels and stuff like that? It's completely possible. It's already starting to happen in a lot of places. Um, what's going to happen to your property because you can no longer make that mortgage, and it's got too many no's for me.
That makes sense. I get it.
Don't get me
To
wrong.
me,
I already know there's going to be people commenting, talking trash. Don't get me wrong. There's people that make money doing it.
yeah. Yeah. Little side discussion. People can't hear it. Just sorry.
Somebody secretly wants to punch me in the face because they love Airbnb. Airbnb does work. I don't think it's a good scalable business plan. I don't think it's a permanent business plan. I think it's going to get regulated to death.
I mean, and then you always, I feel like with real estate, as long as you bought a good property for a good price in a good location, you still have the house. You have other things that you can do with it, whether it's rent it or lease it, or
and that's what I was saying. The
or
only time I would ever consider it is if I bought something that's like such an amazing, unique property.
Yeah.
And in such an amazing, unique place, and to where I'm literally only buying it so that way I could like go stay there sometimes.
Are you familiar with the company that's I think it's the top whatever real estate holders and buyers in America right now? I think it's called BlackRock.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Does that worry you?
That they're buying real estate?
They're buying so much fucking real estate.
Yeah, well, if you're worried about BlackRock,
but they're buying residential, like they're buying houses. They're not buying malls.
Just know for every BlackRock, there's 50,000, 500,000 other syndications that you don't know about that are doing the exact same thing. They're just the only one on the news. So what BlackRock is, they're a syndication, which means that you went and you got licensed with the SEC to where you could raise money. So what you do is you go to, insurance companies, you go to people and you get their retirements. And you say, hey, you want to make money on your retirements? I can take, hey, you've got, your retirement for all the teachers. How are you going to make money on that? Teachers are out there making 8% on their IRAs or whatever. How are they making that money? Well, you got two ways. You can put it in the stock market, or a syndicator can raise money and say, hey, I'm raising money for this fund and I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy properties. And he's using those non-recourse loans that I was telling you about.
Yep.
And they're out there and they're just buying apartment complexes. They were buying every commercial strip center. And, 50 years ago, mom and pops owned everything. They owned every store, every business. If you're worried about BlackRock owning houses, like that's just the beginning of it. You got to keep in mind that every town you went to, there was a store walking distance and somebody's dad owned that store. Every dentist was somebody's like little Timmy's dad. And so now it's not that way. Now Great Clips is also a syndication like BlackRock. Walmart is a syndication like BlackRock. Amazon.
Is it though? How are you comparing Walmart to BlackRock? In what way?
So like Amazon with Jeff Bezos, he raises money. So he's one sole person running a fund that's raising money and taking up all these shops. So just like how BlackRock's taking all the houses, Amazon's taking all the market share for the stores. And it's still all going to one person.
So right, that's my point. Like, does that worry you?
Absolutely.
Right.
But once again, you're going to have I'll say Biden, but it doesn't matter what president stands on the podium and tells you how terrible it is. They made the laws purposely for this. And like they're the ones that made every law. It's not one law. They made every law that made this kind of stuff possible. And so, if you're like into crypto is kind of the same thing. It's like syndications. It's not really, unless you're looking at Bitcoin, everything except for Bitcoin is basically syndications. It's people saying, hey, you can contribute money for these small shares while some guy that you don't know is out spending the money however he wants and is going to do it based off of this API or APY, APR, whatever he's promising you. It works same way with BlackRock and Amazon and any other syndication.
So I don't understand Bitcoin that much, or crypto altogether for that matter. But my concern with BlackRock is the same concern that people have with Amazon, which is monopolizing a certain part of the market, and then they can do whatever the hell they want with the pricing. So, like, if they own a super large amount of houses, they can mess with they can play with the prices any way they like. They can,
Absolutely.
they can raise the rent, they can lower the rent, they can do whatever the fuck they want.
I agree. Hopefully, if anything, it would contribute to lower prices eventually. And I know you're like, that doesn't make sense, but competition in the bigger spaces usually equate to prices being lower. Like,
Right.
Just like Jack in the Box tacos. How are they still 99 cents to this day? I don't know.
Yeah, well, nobody knows what's in those things.
They're inflation proof, but it's hopefully that.
No, but wait, they went up a little bit. No, they're like $1.29 now, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Aren't they? My sister and I were just talking about this the other day. I was like, how long before there's no more dollar menu? And she goes, where the fuck have you been? There's already no dollar menu.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't really go to fast food. If I do, I go to Chick-fil-A. They've never had a dollar menu, but I don't think they're 99 cents anymore.
But the biggest thing is I'm hoping that it causes downward pressure on some of these prices, and that it's not collusion to raise them up. But no, I don't. A great thing the government does is they do break up companies that get too large. But I mean, the government is feeding everything to BlackRock. That's who they were feeding all these bonds to whenever they were doing the repo loans, which, if y'all don't know about, that's what caused all this inflation. It's BlackRock is the government's best friend. And what's funny is the person that runs BlackRock had a lot to do with the 2008 crash. So
really?
That's great.
How's that?
They were just on a big part of all the bonds that caused that bust.
Huh.
So,
is this? Are we? So what do you say? What do you make of the current market condition right now? What people saying that it's going to be another 2008? I read an article actually just this morning about the real estate market has reached a turning point, and it's going to start to come down a little bit. It didn't seem. It didn't make a very aggressive prediction, but it just said that we're at a turning point.
So every time I read a news article that contradicts the other one, even if they're both written by the same people, they could both be Wall Street Journal. One's like, hey, the market's better than ever, keep buying. The next 5 minutes later is like, sell everything you have, the world's on fire. I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen because America is great at always keeping the world guessing on the next turn. I know what should happen. What should happen is, if you follow any stocks, if you follow crypto, if you follow anything where you understand what trend lines are, if you understand what head and shoulder patterns are, you would know that everything is so oversold and has to come down like 80%. Everything. The dollar is oversold. You got stocks. It's not just tech stocks, like the entire S&P is like, it has to come down 80%. Right now we're down 20 and they're acting like it's the end of the world. I think it's going like way lower. Bitcoin
it depends on what sector you look at, because the tech sector you mentioned is down a ton.
Yeah. It's got a long way to go. And so, like I was saying, if you follow trend lines, which is the average, if you go over the average, and somebody was like, explain that to me. And so what I was saying is, like, if I met you one day and you were just really hungry that day because you hadn't ate the day before, and I watch you eat 4 hamburgers, can I just be like, oh, he eats 4 hamburgers a day. No, you can't judge off that. You can't judge off one day. If I meet you one day when you're on a diet and you didn't eat that day, you skipped lunch, can I just assume you went your whole life without eating? No. But if I sit there and I write down, hey, today he ate 2 hamburgers, next day he ate 3, next day he ate 1, I can say by average he eats 2 a day. And that's what it takes for this guy to live. That's the average trend line. So if you take this average trend line and you go by literally anything right now that touches the debt bubble, which is crypto, stocks, real estate, and everything's oversold by 80%. And now I know everybody in the world that's in real estate, it's like, oh my God, it's never going to go down to 8%. Go look at trend lines. It was very trending up 2-3% like it's supposed to with inflation, all the way until we separated and depegged the dollar from gold. And the second that we did that, instead of it going that 2-3%, shot up and like didn't even go up at an angle. It went straight up, and it's been doing that since. And like I said, it's same thing with Bitcoin. It's same thing with the dollar. It's same thing with stocks, and it has to come down at some point. So should it come down at some point? They have to let the bubble pop. I know why they've delayed it, because it's going to be pretty terrible. Sooner or later, it has to happen. Will it be this time? I don't know. I'm telling you, raising interest rates is definitely going to kick a lot of companies in the teeth that use debt. That's people in stocks. That's people in crypto. That's people that are in real estate. Because if you know what cap rates are, right now, commercial properties, 5 years ago, you could buy any commercial property at a 10 cap, which means that if it made 1,000 a month, you'd buy it for 100,000. You know, it's 10%. So now they've collapsed to three caps, which means like there's just no money in the deal anymore. And the reason why is because interest rates went down, and all these people were trying to do was just make a little bit more than interest. And their whole goal was to make money off the equity, not the cash flow. Well, as interest rates go up, those cap rates have to go up as well, which is going to make it where everything commercial on the market is not going to sell. Prices have to come down. Some people don't have the room for that. Some people bought them overpriced. Some people refinanced them overpriced. So, unless the government comes out and pulls one of their wild cards that they're pretty good at doing and says, oh, look, we caused a recession, let's drop interest rates to lower than ever, and now they're 1%, then that'll buy us another 5-10 years. Who knows? I mean, like I said, the United States is really good at making people think they know what's going to happen next, and then just throwing a wild card out there.
Well, the one thing I don't understand when it comes to that is it seems to me like every time we reach our debt ceiling, they just raise the fucking ceiling. And I'm like, well, if you can just keep raising the ceiling, then why not just take the whole roof off and stop telling us that we're gonna hit our debt limit and then we're fucked.
Well, and that's a good reason why the government loves inflation, because inflation eats your debt. And so, you know, if you owe 100,000 and your debt is only worth 200,000, you owe 50%. But when inflation hits and everything's worth 4 times as much, by you gaining the equity, you're eating up your debt. Yeah, your debt's still 100%, but now instead of it being 50% of whatever you own, your economic share, your real estate, whatever it is, now it's 20% of it. And so that's why the United States government loves that inflation, because it helps eat up their own debt. And that's why that they don't have to pay back China or anybody else that they owe money to based on their bonds, because they can erode it away with inflation.
Economics at that level hurt my brain a little bit.
Yeah. And that's what I said. Like, you can get mad about it. I watch all these, they like to call us boomers. These little millennials. I'm going to say it like that.
What are
millennials.
you? Hold on. What are you?
I don't know. I was born in 83. What am I? Gen Z? I don't know.
No, Gen Z is the one after millennials. Isn't
Okay. Well, then Gen Z. I'm going to make fun of them. But, they're over there crying about, I got to work a job for 40 hours a week, and these people will charge me rent. Like, instead of crying about it, just learn to play the game. Yeah. And I tell people, like, you can't play Monopoly, you can't play pool, you can't play poker and expect to win when you never read the rules.
Right.
So I go read the IRS tax codes. I go read every time some billionaire writes something that I don't think's just like a rah-rah book, to make you feel good, and it's actually saying stuff in there, and I learned this stuff. Like, I would have never listened to Trump's Art of the Deal. Like, I'm just not that kind of guy. I'm not anti-Trump. I'm just not that kind of guy that's going to read a book. But I was riding with my buddy, actually coming to San Antonio like 4 years ago, and he was playing it on like the little book on tape or whatever in his car. And the very first thing is he was talking about the most money ever made was during a depression. And back during the 80s bust, Trump bought this building for really cheap. And that he went to the city and was like, hey, I can make the city great again if I fix up this building. I want y'all to partner with me on it. And instead of me trying to reinvent the wheel, I did the same thing on a smaller scale with the coffee shop,
Yeah.
and I got the city to give me $10,000 to fix up this coffee shop. And I tell people all the time, like, everybody's trying to reinvent the wheel. It's too hard, it's too
Yeah.
difficult, it's too risky. I just try to read the rules. And billionaires are way smarter. They spent more money figuring stuff out. I'm just going to do what they do on a smaller scale.
Right. Right. Are you invested in anything else besides real estate? The things you mentioned, crypto, stocks?
Yeah, I have 6 figures in crypto. Most of it's not my money. For people who are like, "Oh, you like to gamble." Like, back when Bitcoin was $5,000, I tried to buy it and I didn't even know how. Like, nobody really knew anything about it. And I just saw people like screaming, Bitcoin's going up. I'm like, God, how do I buy this? And I finally was able to buy 10 grand worth of it. By the time literally in 3 days, it went from 5 grand to 10 grand. Unfortunately, I got in when it was 10 grand, but I put in 10 grand and it went up to 20.
Mm.
When it went up to 20 before it bust, I pulled my 10 grand out. And so I had no money left in it except for the 10 grand that I made. So I've been gambling with that money for about 4 years now in crypto and
And
done
it's
well
over
with it.
100 grand now.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Does that about what about other cryptos? Have you looked into anything else, or are you just in Bitcoin?
I bought some Shiba Inu just as a lottery ticket. I don't believe in it in any way, but I mean, if you could buy this stuff for nothing, and man, I did well on it. Like, I bought $500 worth because I was like, oh, this stuff's like literally a thousandth of a penny. Let me buy 500 worth, and I got 56,000 coins of it, or tokens, I guess they are,
Yeah.
and it went up and turned into $8,500. So I've got a lot of Ethereum.
Okay.
I bought it at 1,200, and then it went up to like 5,500. I think now it's at like 3,200. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know.
at about 2,000 right
Yeah.
now, I think.
Either way, I'm in at 12. I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
And even if
Yeah.
it goes lower, like, I'm gonna leave it in there because it's a long-term play for me. I'm not trying to make like a quick grand, not day trading it. I don't even really look at it.
Yeah.
I'd literally just wait until I see everybody posting about it on Facebook saying, "Oh my God, look at the price," and then I go check it.
Have you looked into real estate in the metaverse?
I don't understand it. And it doesn't mean I don't believe in it. I know people have made a lot of money on it.
Yeah.
But even when I ask these people, and see, this is me being a boomer. This is where like some 12-year-old kid should walk out and make fun of me. But like, I don't understand it. I don't understand enjoying being in the metaverse instead of the real world. Like, I like the real world. But some of these kids grew up not having any friends because they're a nerd, I guess. I don't know what it is, but they really love to put on a VR headset and not come off of it. And
Well, it's a lot of fun. VR is a lot of fun.
okay, I guess we found the nerd over
No,
here.
I've actually only tried it one time, but I mean, I am pretty nerdy, but I only tried VR one time, just a simple game, and I was
I
like,
can't do it.
whoa, I could get addicted to this.
I tried it once and I got like motion sickness
Oh, you did?
immediately. And I was like, nope, can't do it.
Yeah.
But like, kids really enjoy it, like Minecraft. Like, you can't freaking get them off of it. And so I do believe there's a future in it. What's stupid is a lot of commercial brokers are like having all their meetings in it. And I'm like, you do understand, like, the metaverse is literally your enemy. Like, you sell commercial real estate, they're trying to get people out of stores and on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, you're literally like helping your enemy. But I know people have made 6, 7 figure deals. I know
Yeah.
somebody that bought a metaverse property for 10 grand and is somehow leasing it to
What?
Roblox or Minecraft
Wow.
or some kind of game, and they're making money off it. And I'm like, I don't understand. And I've tried to like watch YouTube videos and at least somewhat understand enough that I could do research. And then I guess I'm not cool enough for that. Like, I don't get it.
I don't get it either. I mean, I haven't looked into it a whole lot, but it just sounds
It's
like, what do you mean? What do you mean I'm buying land? Where is this land?
Yeah, it's like trying to teach your grandma how to use Snapchat. Like, that's
It's
how I
difficult.
feel when somebody's trying to show me how this metaverse thing works.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, how do you know where to buy it? Like, do you go by traffic count? Like, I don't understand. Like, how do you know that this square is better than that square?
Yeah, neighborhood, I guess, zoning.
Yeah,
I don't know.
like you gotta
That's
walk around
the
and look
dangerous
for
neighborhood over there.
gunshots.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of, man, I don't know if y'all saw on the way over here, there was a shooting in Uvalde
Yeah,
earlier today.
I saw that.
That
It's
sucks.
terrible. It does
Yeah.
suck.
Yeah. No, but this whole thing with the metaverse, it's not a new thing, really. The way I look at it is religion has been selling real estate in heaven for a couple thousand years now. It's the same thing. And in fact, years ago, I saw a story about a priest who was sued for selling real estate in heaven. He was, just
Getting this hustle.
tricking people and taking it. Yeah, but it made me think, like, how's that different from going to church? In a church, we give you a tax exemption, but if you do it as an entrepreneur, we sue you.
Yeah,
Doesn't make any sense.
there's a guy that comes on at like 2 a.m. and he sells holy bread. And if
Oh,
you have
yeah.
cancer,
Dude, I've eaten so much holy bread in Lebanon. Holy water, holy oil.
how you feeling? You feel good?
Bro, yeah.
I gotta get me some of that. My back has been killing me for like a month.
Oh, some holy bread will fix you right out.
All right, that's what we're doing.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, I know you gotta go. You gotta go watch a game. What time is it?
Yeah,
What
I
time
gotta
do you
be
have
there
to
at 8:00. It's 7:30
8
now.
o'clock. Hey, let's wrap this up, man. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
find me
This
on
was great.
Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn, which I don't use. I don't really understand it. I'm on
It's not that
Twitter.
fun. I've tried.
Twitter, I don't understand that either.
Twitter sucks.
It's just really to follow Elon Musk. I'm on Snapchat. I don't use that either.
What are your handles? How do people find you?
Everything is either Jawad Dashti or the Jawad Dashti. There's a lot of Jawad Dashtis.
Is there really?
It's like the Bob Smith of Arabs. I didn't know that, but I was like, got on Instagram. I'm like Jawad Dashti, and like there's literally like 1,000. And when I tell people, I'm like, look me up, and then they look me up, and there's literally 100. And they're like, which one's you? And I'm like, the one that looks like he's from America.
Yeah.
So
I think there's only one Jamil Barbar out there, at least on Instagram.
Maybe
Because when I tried to get the name, I couldn't get it, but I could get Jamil Barbar 1, but I didn't want that. So then I just made my handle the Barbar Show.
Yeah, so I had to go with the Jawad Dashti. It was either that or it was trying to give me like Jawad 649 something.
Yeah, no, that doesn't work. Bunch of
Yeah.
numbers. No good.
But on Facebook, I'm not big headed. On Facebook, it's just Jawad Dashti.
Done. Jawad Dashti. I want to say it in the Arabic accent, so I gotta say Jawad Dashti.
So that's how my family says
Yeah,
it.
okay,
And so
cool.
I'm like Jawad. They're like, yeah,
Jawad.
it's
Yeah.
Jawad.
Same with me.
Jawad. I'm like, we're not French. But that's how.
Yeah. Same
Yeah.
with me. Jamil. I'm like, it's Jamil. There's no J. It's just J.
Okay. I'm just calling you Jim.
Hey, the gym works, man. So Jawad Dashti, ladies and gentlemen. See ya.